Hello, everyone. Welcome. My name is Demian Borba, and I'm here with John Nack. And today we're going to be talking about AI. A lot of, I think, John saw so much in the industry over the years, and I'm really curious to know and hear his stories and opinions about everything that's happening in this crazy AI era. So, again, my name is Damian. I run a company called Pactto, a startup called Pactto. We are using Pactto here for this meeting. Really happy to be showing you all of these. And the first thing I want to do is ask John, John, who are you? Can you tell a little bit about you and a little bit of your past? I have a picture here of your LinkedIn. So I don't know, like super curious. Just who are you?
Yeah, who am I, man? I ask myself that a lot. Uh, but yeah, I mean, me in a nutshell, I always say I'm sort of an unfrozen caveman web designer. Um, so I mean, my origin story, the speed run is, as a little kid, I learned, to draw. It's one of my first memories. I was 3 years old. I like cracked the code on drawing a car. I was so proud, like drawing it on cocktail napkins. And so when the Mac came out when I was young, it was really this like road to Damascus moment where suddenly I realized technology could help me do things I couldn't do otherwise, right? Like for the non-olds in the crowd, prior to that, it was like Apple II was like, black screen, green cursor. If you wanted to draw something, it was all ASCII art. So you'd be like, go to, print, da, 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 go to next link, da, 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 da. And it was cool because it was novel, but it was like slow and frustrating. But the Mac was really the first time I was like, oh, this is not replacing what I do by hand. This is just letting me do something in a totally new way or giving me these sort of like yes and powers. And for me, this idea of yes and is always really central. Anybody who knows improv comedy knows that's kind of the golden rule. Like you don't negate what came before. It's like if I say, wow, you and I are, brothers, you're not like, no, we're not, we're spacemen. And it's like, okay, well, now the scene is dead. But if it's like, you brother, and now that we're in space, and I'm like, okay, I guess we're in space. And so I love creative work that builds on what's come before and lets people combine things. And so for me, I desperately wanted a Mac for all of the 80s, but they were like, unbelievably expensive. It was $3,000 just for a 12-inch color monitor in the 80s. And so my folks were pretty supportive, but they're like, I don't think that's going to happen. And so when I got to college, that's really the first time that I could get into, you know, what became Adobe tools or Macromedia, Apple Tech, the first digital cameras. And so I found a way to work with professors and get their coursework online. And it's so funny now to have like teenage kids and it's like, what do you mean like all courses weren't online? Like for them growing up, any screen you can't touch is broken. When they learn to use a mouse, they're like, Dad, have you heard of this? It's awesome. Like you move this like little box around and then there's like a cursor and like for them, that was the new experience. Touch, of course, had just been there since before they were born.
The best pointer, right? Like as Steve Jobs mentioned.
Exactly. I used to joke that I couldn't wait until Apple invented the stylus because you knew they were going to do it. But of course, it's like nobody needs a stylus. If you see a stylus, it means they blew it. And then, of course, when they're ready, no, the stylus. We've always been at war with Oceania, East Asia, whatever. Fine, go for it. Anyway, but yeah, I was able to teach myself a lot of that stuff. I was able to help teach others. And that's really kind of been the through line for the last, 30 years of my life. It's just like, how do I help other people discover what's possible? If it's not possible, can we make it possible? And so I came out of college with like, the incredibly marketable skill of a history major, which is to say like ready to be a barista, but thank God somehow, and I'm kind of skipping over the fact that I actually quit school for a semester and I ended up working for a startup funded by this NFL player. So basically a bunch of his university teammates who weren't going to go pro all started this little company. And I was able to somehow get in there. Like so much of my life feels like luck, providence, whatever you want to call it. But anyway, that was huge because I could then join a .com design agency in 1998. And basically I haven't had a gap in employment between that moment and this one. But
Oh
we can
wow.
talk about that. Yeah, so which is trippy. It's just weird that I'm fun employed for the moment. Anyway, we can talk about why that is. Anyway, yeah, I mean, so just I got to work on these incredible clients, Nike, Gucci, British Airways, Sirius. And in that process, I was grateful to be there, but I kept realizing, God, I'm spending a lot of time on dumb crap. And it's like I did go to school. Maybe just making 200 gifts today is not the best and highest use of my time. And if I can make things better for myself, maybe I can make them better for other people. And so really, that was kind of the origin of talking to Adobe and Macromedia and these other companies, trying to kind of hack together weird little solutions for our clients. And then, I would kind of keep poking Adobe, and I always say I was like a pissed off Adobe customer, like in the most gentle, right? Like gentle, positive way. But it was like, do you guys not use these products? And I was like, well, not really. I mean, truthfully, like we're good at making them and we're good at, hearing what other people have to say. But like the moment you get out of the full-time creative world, you have to be honest. Like you're not making your living like, holy crap, I have like 11 minutes till that client review. Like we got to go. Or, you go talk to some printer and like they need 4 decimal points of precision on PostScript. And here's why. Right. And they know the expensive job that went bad if that didn't work. So, of, you know, I say when I was a customer, they had to at least pretend to listen to me. And they're like, aha, I have a solution. We can hire this guy. We'll make him a product manager, whatever that is. And
Before
we don't
the
have
term
to listen
was
to
something, right? Yeah.
what's that?
Before product management was something like as a
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I got to go back to my university last week and actually speak to a bunch of MBA students. And a bunch of them are like studying product management. Like, really? You can do that? That's so crazy. It's like, yeah, old man, of course you can do that. Like, it's a big job. But like, certainly when I went into it, I'm like, I don't know what this is. I just know that Flash sucks. And I wish it sucked less. Um, and it was love hate because like I loved what
what
Flash
year
player.
was that? What year is that?
Oh, this was 2000. Like, yeah. And so basically Adobe was like, oh, Flash, that won't stick around. Of course not. Of course it'll be, web standards, duh. Which it was, just we were off by one in the decade column. So, being early is the same as being wrong. Anyway, but no, I came in to make a web standards based animation tool, like basically After Effects for the web. And we always thought, well, Flash is amazing, but it's like democracy, it's the worst except for everything else we've tried. So certainly it will give way to, browsers doing like rich, hardware accelerated goodness. Well, again, it did, but it wasn't until, Steve Jobs and the iPad and, having a beef with Flash. So, yeah, but I came in to do that, had the, amazing genius, good timing to launch it right into the dot-com crash, So basically the market went down by 10x. So they weren't going to keep it going. So I, plowed into 2 years. I was at Microsoft actually on what was supposed to be my last day after they canceled the project. And I was up there interviewing. And any sort of Adobe heads will know Brian Lampkin, like OG vice president dude. All of a sudden, like I'm standing in the Microsoft building, get this call, and it's like, hi, this is Brian Lampkin. And I'm like, it'd be like if Emperor Palpatine called. I'm like, yeah, right, okay, and I'm, Bob Marley or whatever. So it's like, no, okay, shit. All right, hi, Brian. And he's like, well, people say we're gonna fire you today, and Russell Brown said maybe we shouldn't. And you know, yeah, the Photoshop PM is going on maternity leave on Monday. Do you want to talk about that job? And I'm like, I do. Like, I will get back to you in a minute. Right. So I ended up working at Microsoft 22 years later. But yeah, really that changed my life. And so I then spent the next year, 10 years on Photoshop. Anyway,
Nice.
I won't belabor it, make it all about me. Just give folks like a
No, I
sense.
love it. I love it.
It's just such a weird nonlinear path. I feel like maybe most people have paths like that. But like, if you read LinkedIn, like everybody is like young and fit and taking over the world. And, then they're like DMing you in the background, like, oh my God, get me out of here, man. So, so it's like reading fashion magazines. It just makes you feel poor and ugly, So don't do it.
That is a very interesting point. So I'm 44 now, and I started my career in '98 making that ball bounce in Flash.
Oh yeah.
That was my first project. Flash 4, I think, Flash 3, Flash 4.
Probably
And,
free. Yeah.
and it was such a nice experience. And I did Flash work for the next 10 years of my life. Always close to Adobe, same thing, like passionate about. And the way Adobe presented itself for like the outside world, it was like this magical thing, right? I think they still do that really well.
Mhm.
But then years later, 2015, I joined and I saw the Adobe from the inside. Again,
Yeah.
great company, but it has the same problems of any other company, right? Like politics and challenges and legacy. Like I never forget one of our engineers. I was a PM on Adobe XD, and he was saying that Photoshop, like navigating the code base in Photoshop, was like visiting a museum.
Oh man. Yeah.
Forget that.
It's funny you say that because I'll always be a little sad that I had to give up my boxed copy of Photoshop 1.0 to actually put in a museum. Because like when I joined the team, they just had a few of these lying around. So, oh my God, can I have one of those? It's amazing. And then the Smithsonian called. They said, yeah, we want a copy of Photoshop for our archives. I'm like, oh, okay, you're going to a better home, little buddy.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean, kind of maybe this will segue to like talking about AI, but like I just saw a video from my old manager at Google, who's now at Y Combinator, and he was talking about the horseless carriage moment of AI, right? Like traditionally, when we switch from one technology to another, you kind of just do the old thing but with the new stuff. And like this was true with obviously with cars, right? It's like, oh, we know how to make carriages. Just replace the horse, we'll put in a motor, and now you've got a car. And it's like, well, not really. Um, and cinema was the same. It's like, oh, we've been doing plays for 2,500 years. The Greeks did it. We know how to do that. We'll just do that. We'll put some cameras in front. But of course, the new medium made it possible to have like multiple vantage points and move the cameras and all that good stuff. And so right now, I think it's a necessary but not sufficient moment where, I was just emailing a PM on Photoshop and be like, oh my God, thank you for like putting Flux and Nano Banana into Photoshop. Man, I was trying to do that 3 years ago. I couldn't get it to, everybody's like too afraid basically, but you guys actually did it. So hell yeah. And as great as I think that is, it's like Photoshop with like a little fairy dust, right? It's not the next thing. And a lot of people are now questioning, like, it's not like, oh, let's find a better way to make layers easy. It's like, do you need layers? Do you need brushes? Do you need hue SAD adjustment tools? Maybe. But like, I think the polarity flips and those become kind of the minority case for touch up, as opposed to like the dominant case of like, create, transform. And then what becomes possible when you can have like, Demian dot person and John dot person or whatever. And it's like, cool, now let's go tell a story with us, like as specific people. Now we're seeing that with Sora and this notion of a cameo, right? So, look, if I knew what the non-horseless carriage was, I'd go build it and hopefully make a bunch of dough. But more importantly, hopefully just deliver something truly revolutionary. In the meantime, I see, like our friend Christian Cantrell and I introduced him to my old boss, Luke from Google. They're making rev.art, REVE.art.
Oh, yeah, I saw it. No,
Right?
and NJ is there too, right?
It's right. NJ, a whole bunch of great Adobe folks,
Yeah.
Adobe vets. Yeah, and they're just asking the question of like, if you had something which was like really chat centric and had some direct manipulation, but it was much more sort of like art direction or choreography as opposed to pixel pushing, what would that look like? Right. And so, other people are trying like a node based approach. Like, what if you had essentially a flow chart? And you're like, okay, take in person or, take in prompt, generate image, then take image and turn to video, and then take the video and do whatever. And it's like, maybe that'll be a key ingredient. I don't know. I feel like we haven't yet hit like a TikTok moment where, like, yeah, of course, phones came out and you could watch video on your phone. Great. And I was like, yeah, just rotate your phone. It's like, I don't want to rotate my phone, right? And then it became like native to the platform. Um, so anyway, yeah,
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
totally freestyling, but these are the things at least on my mind.
No, yeah, I think that shift is so massive that I remember during my initial days of like being a creative professional, working for creative agencies, doing a lot of Flash work and Photoshop, and at one point teaching Photoshop, teaching Flash. Flash was easy compared to Photoshop. Photoshop
Mm.
required someone teaching you. Like
Mm.
it was non-intuitive. Like if you open Photoshop 20 years ago, it was like, what do I do here? Like it was really, 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 really hard, right?
Hey,
And now you see these new UIs where it's literally a prompt, like an input text field, but that is also not ideal, right? Like humans are confined in this like this little thing. So what do you think about this shifting UI? Like we came from this very complex world of Photoshop that every button is there for one simple task. I mean complex, but like one
sure.
exact text
Right.
task. And now you have these more like it's the it captures the intention, and then the UI, the the AI tries to kind of fine tune and even optimize the prompt internally, something that people don't see, right? What do you think of that shift? Like, what do you think of that shift, and where is it going next?
Well, I'm going to try to pull up this little sketch, and I give all credit to this guy, James Ratliff at Adobe. He's really interesting, thoughtful UI designer for video. Um, of course, of course, at the moment, I'm like, where the heck is it? But I'll find it. Essentially, it's two inverse pyramids, put it that way. And so basically, James's idea is like, as you move from like a large possibility space down to something specific, um, the modality of the tools changes, right? So you think at the one extreme, it's like cat. Like you type literally 3 characters, CAT, return, bang. The model just does everything with like the world's most sparse input. At the other end is like, I've got this specific cat and I'm like wanting its whiskers to look a particular way, right? So you're totally using a different tool, but you're like, I don't want every cat in the world. I just like literally want to polish this one. And so basically, as you move along that journey, you're probably switching in terms of going from like a prompt to a more direct input. Now, what's interesting in the last even 3 months, I would say, let's say since May, when like Flux Context came out, followed by Nano Banana, these other models. Well, now you can actually do more precise manipulations, like, change my shirt into a leather jacket. Don't change the rest of the image. So now the things that had required direct input maybe don't require it as much. Having said that, at some point, I think I still don't think you're going to be wanting to use language for everything. If you remember, there's a scene in Blade Runner where he's like, okay, quadrant, move 3 to the left and 1 up. It's like, it's cool because it's amazing. It's a movie, but it's same as like Minority Report. Everybody thought, oh yeah, we're going to be waving our arms around. I'm like, have you tried that? Like, I don't know how struck you are, but I get pretty tired, as do most people.
Yeah,
Uh, and so I think in reality, people aren't going to be like, move it left. No, actually move it a little right. That's too far right. Move it a little bit back left. It's like, you want to pick up the damn thing and move it over there. Right. And so that's cool. Like, again, that's what the Rev guys are starting to explore. Obviously a lot is super dependent on the quality of the models right now, and it's still more error prone than we would like. But oh my God, it's incredible that like, I'll maybe find this tweet I was showing the Flux guys, this WAN video of relighting. In fact, let me grab that while we're chatting. But like, dude, I literally remember 2007 seeing people do like the first like mesh fitting with a human face, and like it was a Audrey Hepburn. I remember to this day. This guy Volker Blondes in Germany. I'm like, if we get in touch with this dude, can we make it so like you can actually like move a light source around a face? And of course now you can, and doing it while not screwing up someone's identity is really the tricky part. And even again, what, 3 months ago, 6 months ago, it was like, it's getting there, but it kind of sucks. Well, now it's actually getting practical. So let me Let me find this, but feel free to.
Yeah, no. I think
Or you?
yeah, I was really impressed. I met John for the first time like in a dinner in San Francisco a couple of days ago. The AI design leaders dinner by organized by JP Morgan, and it was such a nice conversation about what's important in life, and a lot of people that went through a lot of corporate and left. They did startups and left. So it was a very interesting, deep conversation about raising kids, and I was really impressed with all that. Yeah. So let's see here. You just added a video.
Yeah, let's see if this works.
Yes, you can play on your end.
Sure. Let me hit play. I don't know that the audio is too important. I can probably mute this guy. Um,
Yes,
oh,
that
but
works.
like, oh my God, I feel like I mean, I'm taking for granted the fact that you and I are talking to machines and it's like magically going through the air and we're having a chat. Like no one notices that,
In
right?
the browser.
I mean, all of it, dude. It's like a thing on thing on thing on thing, right? I don't know how electricity works. Come on, you know, something about the right hand rule, but that's like literally as far as I got. But like, look at this. This is crazy, right? I mean, I'll just play it again, and I'm muted this time. But like look at the dude. Like it's still him. Um, right? It's not like he's melting or morphing into like his cousin or something. Now, of course, the trick with these, you got to try it on yourself because otherwise, um, it sometimes doesn't hold up when it's a page you know super well. But like this is night and day different and better, and it's been again even a couple months ago. And so you think about a tool like Photoshop where it's like, yeah, these are the core capabilities that emerge when you have like a world model, right? Like something that actually understands these like notions of depth, lighting, direction, your physicality, occlusion. Um, there's a Google, oh God, it's not, the names are too similar. It's not Gemini. It's the world viewer.
Oh, I saw it. Like, yeah.
Yeah, it just got honored with some,
It's like
some award.
it's like a video game creates the world. Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is where like, in terms of where I want to spend my time career wise, like I just want to get closer to the ridiculous geniuses who can make these models, where like now you see, Sora and Vio, and they're obviously like world simulators. They have like a strong concept of physics and light and like things should work a certain way and shouldn't. Now, sometimes like the Matrix, you can cheat that stuff and it's funny and interesting and it turns heads. But like you probably want to have that grounding, right? And so like however WAN works, it seems to have like a pretty clear understanding of like, oh, here's a guy, here's a light source. Again, just to play it, it's like it's even like rippling. Like a candle actually isn't a constant light source, and it would like generate reflections on his glasses, stuff like that. And so, I've always wanted Photoshop and similar tools to know like, oh, this is like there's a dog and he's like halfway behind this fence. But if I move the fence or I move the dog, the rest of the dog would emerge, right? Or I could move things in perspective without having to, do a bunch of like manual transformation. It's like basically the tools at once get like massively more complex under the hood, but they get massively simpler, I think, at the user level, which is pretty exciting. Like we have a feature, again, this is like if you're an OG Photoshop user, but there's a thing called vanishing point. I should try to
Yeah,
find
I remember that.
the videos. It's still in there, you know. Um,
Like walls, like I like
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, and it was the two of my old live motion teammates came up with it. It's brilliant, but it was totally dependent on you placing these meshes by hand, and it turned out that mesh placement is kind of hard to do with enough precision. Like you think it's right, but like if you're off by a couple pixels, then you slide the window down and like it doesn't line up anymore, right? And so I mean, it knocked people's socks off. I mean, it's amazing when you like take a window of your house and like slide it around the corner. People went berserk. Well, now I think that kind of UI can actually become possible where it's like, yeah, I just want to like literally move stuff. In fact, what the hell, if you're cool with that, I'll share my screen because
Yeah. Let's
I
go.
want to show you all this stuff.
Let's go.
But like I
Yeah.
say, jump in.
No. I'm excited to learn, especially the stories and your thoughts on these things. So I just made it bigger so I can see it. Yeah,
Okay.
but I
Can
can.
you see the screen?
Yes, I can see your screen.
Okay. Let me show you. So Flux Hackathon. Um, let me.
If you want
I'm
to
gonna.
play audio, you have to share. No audio.
It's cool. We don't need audio, but basically, I just wanted to show this is a guy, and he's showing how like in classical art, you've got 1 point, 2 point, 3 point perspective. So like, what if you could use those sort of well-known patterns to actually like cue generative models? And so he came up with, we'll see where he's got it in here. Scrub along. Um, yeah, basically just this like really simple little like centroid you can put. And then that you can see is guiding how this train is getting rendered, right? And so I think later in the video I think he moves it elsewhere.
The visual structure of the video.
Yeah, exactly. And so let's see it generate. If you move it to the left, and now you're going to get like a different scene, right? So you could have these really simple controls. I just want to reach into the image, and now you can like potentially turn someone. You can like again move lights. In fact, if I go to, I retweeted this guy today. I don't know if people have seen. I think it's Project Turntable.
Oh, the rotation.
Yeah, yeah, and again, my dumb arts and letters guy, unfrozen caveman web designer, understanding I think what's going on here, and I welcome correction, but like I think they're essentially asking the model, okay, take this 2D drawing and then generate novel views of it and then vectorize those.
I thought
And
the
so
same thing. I thought the same thing.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's cool that like as an artist you can still draw as you've always drawn, but now you can do something like this which maybe people could do with like sufficient time and skill, but probably the time's going to be prohibitive,
So
right?
good. So good.
Yeah.
And it's saying that these things are like in Photoshop and Illustrator, they're impossible. Like I have to recreate everything by hand and just hope for a good result, right? And
Totally.
this is real now is insane. Like Nano Banana, I saw those things that you can move a pose, like you can change a pose. That is like no matter how hard Photoshop like work, I don't think we'll ever
Yeah.
get there. Like
No, I don't think you'd ever get there at all, right? Just trying to see if there's anything else. Yeah, here's like our friend Chris, Adobe evangelist, again showing like being able to composite things together. It's like, okay, remove the background, do this harmonized step, and then yeah, it's like, come on, man. Like even if you like you said, even if you know the alchemy of like, okay, I need levels and I need curves and I need hue sat, and it's like even then, like getting the light to like wrap around a cat, and like deal with the fur. I mean, you're really like 1% of 1% if you can do that. I was trying to ship stuff like this in Photoshop Touch in 2011, and I would go to the research team and be like, "Can we do this?" I'm like, "Yeah, sorry, man, it's just like beyond the state of the art." And so, and so it goes. We did our best to like come up with some kind of blending, but it was never going to be like that general and satisfying. Um,
one thing that I feel like it's really interesting in this AI era is a lot of these teams that build the models,
mm,
they don't truly know what's happening inside the model, right? It's almost
they,
like a living creature that's
yeah,
like just doing something, and they're testing what that creature can do at
yeah,
the times, right? So
yeah,
it is really insane. Like
it is.
but
Well, right.
get to the level like not understanding, like as a computer scientist, like not truly understanding exactly what's happening inside
Yeah,
is crazy.
it is crazy. Let's just say this. My former teammate John Barron. If anybody's tried like Gaussian splatting, nerfs, that kind of stuff. So obviously just giant brain genius. I think he was the one. Yeah, so they just like put out a new paper, basically like new ways to capture and render 3D scenes. but I think he was, yeah,
Put it to the middle here so I can see that.
yeah. Let's see if this is the vid. Like, maybe that's the one. Oh, this. Sorry, here it is. I think this is the one. Uh,
What?
yeah. So I forget quite how he accomplished this. I think he might have flipped the video upside down, but it's just sort of uncanny. I mean, I do think that's part of what makes these is interesting. It's like, again, like the Matrix, it's like you have to know the rules so that you can break them. And so, you think about like, Will Smith eating spaghetti, if like people haven't seen that.
The beginnings of AI,
Right. And
generative.
yeah, and it's funny to call like the beginning is like 2023. But it's true. Like again, if folks haven't seen this, like this thing on the left, that was like full on state of the art, you know, like and Biden was president. You know what I mean? This is not like old timey. And then, here you got the thing on the right.
It's insane.
Now,
Oh, and
yeah, so okay, I think people would generally agree the thing on the right is more useful. On the other hand, the thing on the left is super memorable and like sort of compelling, just because it's so out there. And so I feel like as the tools get better at like doing the quote unquote right thing, again, then you can start to selectively mess with them and maybe get something novel, right? Or like feed in a different input for your logo design. I mean, that to me is what like a creative human does, right? You bring culture and experience and thoughtfulness that other people don't have. And again, that's what makes you, but it also then it's what makes your art your art. Like that's the part that I strongly hope won't be replaced. I don't think it can be.
but
Uh,
how different do you think? Maybe this is like this. It's hard to precisely define this, but our brains are constantly running simulations, right? Like we are, like when we're like running and all these things, like on a unconscious side, like there's always like simulations, and then when they come to the conscious side, then they become the like ideas and awareness and all that. How
mm,
different is this from AI? Because my simulations happening in my brain are related to my experiences, my past, right? Like my
okay,
present and past. AI is the same thing as far as I understand. Like it's
right.
trained on the past, and it's running simulations using those pieces to generate something that doesn't exist yet. Uh, how
Yeah.
different is like our brain, in your opinion, our brains from AI, because they're always running simulations?
Dude, I'll just tell you this. I saw an old friend who learned radio repair in the Navy. There's AM and there's FM, and the Navy guy was like, FM, that stands for effing magic. That's all you people have to know. He's like, good enough for me, boss. Um, but that a lot of the stuff is effing magic to me. I don't know. I think your analogy is right. I mean, again, these things we're trying to force feed them like enough data to make a world model that like approximates our perception of reality. But yeah, I don't know. I guess I would say, I mean, this is actually to call out one like slightly uncomfortable thing. Um, they can then be biased in ways that are not great, right? Like there's let's see if I can find it, but let's just see if yeah. So essentially, I know folks have seen this, but like,
No.
right, this is a couple years ago, but like you take this tiny picture of Obama and scale it up and he turns into a white guy. And it's well, why, well, why would that happen? And there's other examples NVIDIA found where if you would take a woman and you would make her older, you would also make her look more male. And again, to your point, like there must be some reason this is happening. Why is it? And it's really it came down in both cases to just like a function of the training data, right? And so it's like, okay, this particular data set had more white people in it, and therefore, like it would skew people's skin tone. Like that's something you can, if you test for it, you can notice it and you can correct for it. But if you don't, like that kind of thing can just happen. And similarly with the age thing, it was basically because like if you look at advertising data, which is a big source of training data, um, no surprise, you've got like attractive young women, and then you've got like a, authoritative older men, right? Like these are like cultural tropes that we have. And so basically the data set, it's like, okay, so it kind of correlates young and woman and old and man. So basically if you make somebody old, you basically make them a man. And it's like, oh, well, that doesn't make sense on a level, but it kind of does when you actually know like does the model actually know anything about anything, or is it just like looking for like averages, And that's where, I happen to have this I would
It's that old, like, old, that design thinking story about how, like, different people see things different ways. Like a cow in India is sacred, right? Like in here, it's just a cow, right? So it's
yeah.
the way you are trained on that really matters. Yeah.
Yeah, well, actually, let me see if I can find a petapixel. Um, this isn't the one I was looking for, but there was a woman who did a Fiverr challenge and basically asked human retouchers around the world, like, make me more attractive. Let me see if I can find it. But exactly as you say, it was a really interesting kind of cultural lens. Um, we'll see if this comes up.
It's really fascinating. As you said, we're in the very beginning of this journey. I have a 10-year-old daughter, a 6-year-old son. I don't know how, like, when they're 20, 25, like, what the world would be, right? It's changing so fast
Yeah.
that I don't know the deal, like, of interfaces and interactions they will have.
Yep. Yep. I don't know either. I mean, I guess, because I've got teenage sons and it's like, what can I tell them? Like they're trying to figure out, where should I spend my time?
Mm.
Uh, what kind of like area of focus is going to be most interesting? Okay, here it is. Got it. So yeah, so she had people in 18 countries modify it, but it's interesting because yeah, again, so much is contextual. So much is like, is it good to be really thin? Is it good to be curvaceous? Good to be light skinned or dark skinned? Like, it all depends. I mean, I think, by the way, if people are looking for a good book, my kid's probably in the kitchen and will make fun of me if he hears me say this because I always recommend it. But there's a book called The Status Game. Um, this guy, Will Storr, wrote, and um, it's like you have to be a little careful because it is like seductive to kind of reduce everything in human nature down to this one thing. But like he makes a pretty compelling case that like you as a mammal and I as a mammal are programmed to seek status because that correlates with the propagation of your genes, right? Like basically, are you going to live and have kids, and are they going to have kids? And like as a pack animal or social animal, like you need to be in the good graces of other humans. And that's why people are so um sensitive to this. So back to the like photoshopping thing, I think basically what they're really perceiving and trying to solve for is status, right? It's not that like being thin versus curvy um is itself the thing. It's more, what does this say about my place in the hierarchy, right? Like, you know, 500 years ago, maybe 200 years ago, maybe some places still, it's like, well, if you got, some extra curves, well, that's super attractive because it means like you're prosperous, like you have enough food, right? Whereas now it's like, there's so much, there's so many empty calories that people who are poor tend to be heavy food. And so what people are trying to convey is like, well, I want to be skinny because that's like, that makes me virtuous and like, I'm a better person, if I'm skinny. Like similarly, 200 years ago, if you were very pale, it's like, well, you must be rich because you don't have to work in the field. And then it's like, I don't know, in the 80s, it's like, well, I want to be tan because it means I'm rich, that I actually have time to go on the beach, right? And so it's not that like the skin tone itself is the attractive thing, or that it's what it says about your place in society,
Oh, it's so interesting. And it's like, if you look at the past, all the statues, like from the Renaissance, they're like, everyone is like fit, and the women are kind of like heavier, I'd say.
Yeah.
now it's the opposite. Like now, like a lot of the beauty, like especially on our side here, U.S., Latin America, it's
Yeah.
all like super fit, and it's kind of
Mhm.
it's really weird. In terms of creativity, because you spend so much time uh, trying to decipher how creatives think, or like creating pathways for them to execute their thoughts into something that became pixels.
Mm.
What do you think is the future of creative workflows? For example, I have a video here. Or is that video?
Here, yeah, look.
Jobs. I'll play here very quickly.
In a live action movie, the director goes out and shoots lots of film, typically between 10 and 100 times more footage than will end up on the screen. And then they take it all into the editing room and they build their movie in the editing room. And that's why, sometimes you see a movie and you go, that stunk. Didn't they know it? Well, the answer is yes, they did, but they knew it too late. They knew it in the editing room and they go, oh, Jesus. And by the time they knew it, the actors were gone, the sets were down, they ran out of money, and they had what they had and they made the best movie they could. So in animation, it is so expensive that you cannot afford to animate more than a few percent more than is going to end up on the screen. You could never afford to animate 10 times more than is going to end up on the screen. So how do you do it? Well, Walt Disney himself solved this problem decades ago. And the way he solved it was he said, we have to edit our film before we make it, not after. Well, how do you edit a film before you make it? Well, you get your story team together and you do storyboards. You do these little pictures for every key scene, but that wasn't enough. Then what he did was he actually photographed them on film. He filmed each picture, of which there are, thousands. And then he got he got scratch voices, people around the studio to do the voices, and he'd even put in some scratch music. And then he could watch his movie. And we still do that today. We use video, we were more sophisticated at it, but basically we build our movie before we make it out of these story sketches, and we video them and we put scratch music and scratch voices so we can watch our movie. And invariably, what you think is going to work crashes and burns when you see it in the reels. And you iterate on these reels thousands of times, and only when it works in the reels do you then go animate it and actually produce it. And so, in Hollywood, one of the most popular sayings is, the story is king. But it turns out it really isn't, because when push comes to shove, when a movie's in production and there's a lot of mouths to feed and they're waiting for stuff to make and the story's not working, almost everybody says, well, we just have to make the movie. And one of the things that I'm proudest of Pixar of is we have a story crisis on every movie, and production's rolling and there's mouths to feed and something's just not working. And we stop. We stop and we fix the story. Because John Lasseter, who's one of the founders of Pixar, he really instilled a culture of story, story, story. And even though Pixar is the most technologically advanced studio in the world, John has a saying that's really stuck, which is no amount of technology will turn a bad story into a good story. So that's, I think, one of the reasons why we've been so fortunate is that we get to look at our movies before we really make them and perfect them in reels.
Yeah. What do you think of that? Is it true that the iterative process of creativity will be unique and human, and to get to the right stories you have to go through that low fidelity iterative process of testing before really going crazy and adding all the shaders and effects?
Yeah, it's a great question. I guess a couple thoughts. I think Ed Catmull, who's one of the other Pixar founders, said, let's do something so we can change it. Like Steve says, I don't know what it is. Like, you wouldn't go in with something you knew was broken, but it's like advertising. You know that half the money will be wasted. You just don't know which half. Which is frustrating. And so, Ed's point was like, I'm not going to miracle my way into knowing. We just have to try. I mean, venture capitalists, I think, have the same perspective and humility when possible, which is like, look, all our experience, like, there's so many variables, it's still kind of throwing darts. We just have to throw, a number of darts, and we have to plant a lot of seeds. And, I look at like Andreessen Horowitz, and they're funding, Black Forest Labs, but also Ideogram. And they both make great models, and presumably they're competitors. Maybe over time they'll become complementary, but certainly right now they're both just ways to do image generation. And I think they just acknowledge, we'll invest in the people. There's great teams at both places. There's probably other investments. We don't know who's going to win or what winning looks like, but we're going to try it. I would also say with this animation and process question, I think it will become much more tractable to just try stuff, which on one level I think is great. But if you remember, this might be before your time, but like when desktop publishing started, like it's like Corel would be like, this app comes with 300 fonts. And you're like, awesome, I'm going to use 300 fonts. And it's like, people got these like gross ransom note looking contraptions because they didn't, have any theory as to like, why am I using this? So like every church bulletin was like, coming soon and italicized and drop, it's like, oh my God, back it off, guys.
I know,
right? And so
word art.
Yeah. Whereas, oh my God, do get me started. We're going to need to drink a little bit about word art, but the point is like suddenly anybody could do any number of fonts immediately. And it's like give people enough rope, they'll hang themselves. I mean, prior to that, you had to go buy Letraset letters and like cut them out and rub them down. In fact, my son found like a 40-year-old set of these things. And it was like finding, I don't know, the Ark of the Covenant or something. Like, oh my God, humans used to live this way. Or like if you found like a stone knife or something, what do you mean you couldn't use that font because like you ran out of the letter C? It's like, yeah, that's how it was. So like that forced a level of intentionality, but it also restricted experimentation, right? And I'm sure it's true that when people made the jump from analog to digital in that way, a lot of craft was lost, right? It's kind of inevitable. I mean, with, people talk about AI slop and, just for the lulls, I was like, taking Russell Brown from Adobe, making him into an action figure, feeding that into Sora and making like 90s animations out of it. I should load one up just for fun. But anyway, the fact that it was so easy, it doesn't feel special or meaningful. It just feels like, did I make that or did I just kind of walk by that being made? And then B, famously, there's the paradox of choice, which is as people have more options, they may actually end up with something which is objectively better as a solution, but they feel worse, right? This is like true with dating apps. It's like, well, I don't know, I look at my grandparents in Ireland and it was like, you marry the girl next door and then you have a bunch of kids and one of you dies and then you marry the next person next door and you have a bunch more kids, right? And it's not very romantic, but it's like how we got here as a species. And now it's like you walk into the grocery store and there's like 47 types of ketchup, and you're like, oh God, what's the optimal one, right? Like if you give people 401k options, the more you give them, the fewer people get any 401k. And any 401k is better than not having a 401k, right? Right. So it, again, as tools make it easy to like, well, should I change that? Or like, should I put this guy in 56 different costumes? And like, I don't know. Like for me, there was almost a pleasure in those like 90s computers where, like making a drop shadow, you kind of had to be the dude to do it. Like, cause it was such a tight rope, a tight white, or whatever, you know what I'm trying to say, right? Like before you had layers, this is like fully old man Nack here, but like
pixel by pixel, yeah.
Pixel by pixel, and you had one level of undo, and it was like, okay, you had to like Command J to jump it, to float it, and then you had to like blur it, and like, holy crap, don't F this up, because, and then even if you wanted to save, that probably takes 2 minutes to write to disk, So I'm not saying I want to go back, but it did force you to think a little bit more before you went and just did, let me just like open the kitchen sink and have Will Smith eating spaghetti and then like dinosaurs flying out of my, it's like, anyway, whatever. But you know what? People kind of recalibrate. I think they find homeostasis. They find things that work. AR filters been around for a long time, but it's not like every image now has 10 AR filters on it. Like people use it selectively. And so I don't know. There's a lot of doom and gloom. I will say I do worry about the arts being monetizable, right? Because it's like, yeah, I can just make something beautiful myself. I don't have to pay an artist. And it's like, I guess nice for me, sucks for them. would I tell my kids like go into a fine art program, even in design? I don't know. I want to tell them that. I guess what I'll tell them is like building like your unique understanding of the world. That's valuable, right? Like be a person in the world. Like this photographer, Walker Evans, said, stare. It's the way to educate your eye and more. Stare, listen, eavesdrop, pry, die knowing something. You're not here long. And I've always been like, yeah, man, die knowing something, right? But before you die, given that you know something, bring that to your creation, right? Like for me, it's like, oh, Patton Oswalt has a bit about giant turkey legs, and like that makes me think of like a 50s horror sci-fi thing. And like, what if I put those together? And it's like, oh, that's actually kind of fun. But again, just one more or story. It's, the famously somebody walked up to Picasso and said, oh, will you, draw me a bull or whatever, right? And he goes, sketch, get sketch. That'll be $10,000. I said, well, how dare you? It only took a moment. He's like, no, madam, it took my whole life to learn how to make that bull, right?
It's like what screw to tight, right? It's like it's
yeah, it's. I mean, there's other stories. Henry Ford hires somebody to come, fix a machine in the plant, and they go, bump, 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 knock it. They, draw a circle, and again, that'll be $100,000. So what? It only took you a moment. It's like, no, it took my whole life to know where to draw that, and the $100,000 is nothing compared to the 10 million you would spend if this thing didn't work right. But it's hard. It's hard as humans to like to put a price on value. Like we can put a price on labor, right? You talk about what's the minimum wage? Oh, it's $7 an hour. It's $15 an hour. Like what's fair? It's hard to know. Like how do you put a fair price on, like even the actors on Seinfeld, they're like, yeah, should we be getting $5 million an episode? No, that's insane. That's absurd. But this show is going to be worth $1 billion. So like, what is my contribution to that? Is it 1%? Is it 3%? Like, it's like, okay, when you put it that way, it's not about how many hours did you work. It's about, what was the outcome of that labor, and that's, again, the worry with AI is that because it makes things so fast, it effectively makes them look and feel cheap, right? Even if the output is objectively pleasing, there's something off about it, and something feels like, just invalid.
100%, 100%. It's John, I think we could chat for more hours and hours and hours. This is such a good conversation. Thank you so much for your time. Let's do this more often. I'd love to get more thoughts on the things you're finding and all that, and continue to learn from you. So thank you so much for your time here.
Yeah, thanks, Damian. It's been fun.
Awesome. Thank you. Bye.